Testing, testing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this presentation. My name is Jerry. I am a show production student here at Full Sail University. A little bit about myself. I am a musician. I'm actually a drummer. I was in several bands in high school and out of high school and toured around the nation, mainly the Midwest. And my music career never really played out as I wanted it to be. Just kind of fizzled out, never really made it big, which is hard to do. But I never wanted to leave the music industry. So I've kind of turned my attention towards the back end of things, the behind the scenes of things, and what would be show production. So I wanted to learn a lot and came to Full Sail University to, you know, uh, perfect some skills in the show production world, which I would like to talk about is huge. There are a lot of categories of production. There's music, obviously. There's sports broadcasting. There's television. There's film. There's games. And a lot of my focus in all of those categories would be on the audio side of things. I've always been drawn towards audio as a musician. And I like to make noise is the main thing. So I would like to kind of talk about some of the audio jobs in a couple of different categories like film, television, and stuff. So I would actually like to start with a sound audio job in the world of film. Now, I would like to talk about the sound assistant in the film category. This guy typically gets a start, helping the functionality of the audio department on a film set or television set. And, this is an entry level position, as I said, because they are the ones that are kind of the keepers of the equipment, and they will help out sometimes with the guys that'll have the long boom stands with the big fuzzy microphone at the end. Sometimes they need help with wiring and microphone placement and stuff like that. So that's where the sound assistant will come in. Microphone placement is very important to these guys because it always needs to be, depending on the microphone, needs to be pointed at the source of the audio. Not always the case, but most of the time is the case. So as you can see, I'm pointing the microphone at the audio source, which is my mouth, because if I were to hold it over here, you probably wouldn't hear it as well because, that's a very specific microphone. And these guys need to know specific microphone types as well because I'm using a dynamic microphone, which is much better for the lower end, which, I have a deeper voice, so this dynamic microphone works well for me. But if I had a higher voice, typically women have higher voices, they would need a condenser or a ribbon microphone because, they pick up higher frequencies a lot better, and the sound assistant knows that. And, if you have a scene in a horror film and somebody's going to be screaming really loud, you're probably going to want to use a microphone that gets those higher frequencies and picks those up a lot better compared to this dynamic microphone where I can't scream very loud, but this microphone probably wouldn't work as well for that. Moving on to the category of music, which is my favorite, I'd like to talk about what is the job title of a mix engineer. Here you'll see Leslie Brathwaite. He is also a Full Sail graduate, class of 92, I believe, and is very successful in the music industry, mixing for a lot of famous artists these days, and even worked a lot with Alicia Keys and Beyonce, which is huge. So what he does is he takes a lot of individually recorded tracks from a recording engineer, and you'll have a lot of drum tracks. Each of an individual drum will have its track. A lot of vocals will have their own track. every guitar, every piano, saxophone player, those will all be their own separate audio clips. And what the mix engineer does is makes them blend together really nicely and just sound really good as a one collective song, as instead of a bunch of individual, instruments. And they do this by constantly listening over and over and over again, uh, because they need to basically dissect every little aspect of each one of those tracks and put effects or either dynamic or timing effects on all of those tracks to make them sound really good together. They might sound good just by themselves, but when you blend a bunch of those tracks together, they might not sound good together. So that's the main goal of the mix engineer, is to create one beautifully sounding track at the end of it all. Sometimes this job comes with a lot of deadlines. There's a lot of record labels and companies that need a whole album to come out on a certain release date, and sometimes some of these songs aren't recorded well ahead of time. They will come in, pretty close to the deadline, and these guys really have a lot of work cut out for them. And they can work 16-hour days for 10 to 15 days in a row if they have to, and they will. It's a very time-consuming job, but it's very rewarding at the end. And these guys are really good with computers, I will say. You really can't do this job anymore without a computer. We're in the digital age now, and hardly anything is analog. I'd like to talk about another category, and that is the category of live sound, specifically concerts. So this is one of my biggest aspirations, is to be a front of house audio engineer for, live concerts. And what the front of house audio engineer does is they are going to take basically a bunch of different microphones that are going into their own channels and doing what a mix engineer does, but doing it in real time on the spot, and mixing each one of those microphone channels together to make one good collective sounding track. And that's what's going to be coming out of the speakers for the audience and, anybody in front of the stage. So this is, a pretty high stress job. It can be pretty anxious at times, but if you're good at it, you're good at it. And most of these guys that you see mixing for a live show are the best at what they do. These guys have been doing this for a long time. So that's what I'm hoping to do one day. I'm going to put in a lot of work for it and eventually get to my dream goal of being a front of house and audio engineer. And I'd also like to talk about, a couple of guys that have had, these experiences in their careers. And I'd like to start with a guy named David Eisenhower. As you can see here, he is from Atlanta, started with music at a very young age, singing and playing guitar. And even by the age of 15, he started, mixing live sound for his buddies at his high school in their band, kind of going around with them on the weekends and basically started perfecting live audio, and convinced his parents to buy him a big PA system, which is, pretty impressive that he could do that, but basically started a small audio company with that, and, just perfected his live sound skills even more throughout the years. And, things led up to one another, and he got to meet Sheryl Crow, and when she was a young up-and-coming artist. So, that led to another, and he became her audio engineer for her big arena tours because, she got huge. So after doing that and being very successful in that, eventually came time to get a full-time job, and ended up with Claire Global Audio as their staff engineer and basically a staffing recruiter for them, and is doing that to this day. And I really like his story. He, kind of started from the bottom, worked his way up, and did it very successfully, and made a great life for himself. And that's, you know, definitely what I'm hoping to do. That's what all of us want to do eventually, right? So, another guy I'd like to talk about, his name is Joe Ruffner. Um, he was an aspiring actor. Got into theater at a young age. His mom put him in theater as an extracurricular activity, and grew up wanting to be in movies and television. And it just kind of never really worked out for him. So he kind of just grew older. Never really uprooted himself from his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, and there just wasn't a ton of opportunity in Cleveland. So he like myself, did not want to get out of supporting the theater scene, and ended up turning his attention towards the back end, behind the scenes part of it, which kind of ties into my story at the beginning, and just ended up becoming a stage manager and running the stage for a very big stage theater called the Second City Theater in Chicago, where a lot of big actors like Steve Carell and Stephen Colbert got their start in improv at a young age too. I don't think he was there then, but he was there later. And they eventually opened up a Second City Theater in Cleveland. So lucky for him, he got to do what he loves and move back to his hometown and, live a fulfilling life, and still loves it to this day. And that's pretty inspiring. As I kind of started out with the same career path as him, not making it, but wanting to get onto the back end of things. So those are just a few jobs. There are obviously thousands more per category. I can only get into a few for today, but I look forward to researching a lot more of them in the future, and kind of after I graduate, see where it takes me, and just have a successful career. And I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hope you're having a great day, a great life, and I'll see you on the flip side.